Hi people, it's me, Anja. My pronouns all she and her, and welcome back to my channel for a new recent reads video. I got back from Europe 2 days ago, and now I'm back home, so I'm back to my regularly scheduled content, which includes recent reads videos. So basically, some of these books I read before my trip, some of them during, and some of them afterwards when I got home. So basically, without any further ado, the first book on this list is called Fitting Indian. This story is a YA contemporary graphic novel that follows a young Indian main character who is navigating high school and also her depression, and there's a trigger warning on this book which is listed in the very beginning of the story for a suicide attempt as well as excessive drinking. This book is absolutely so good and it's so fantastic. I really enjoyed it. It was also deeply relatable when it comes to having like traditional family expectations. This book was so good. I loved it so much. First of all, the illustrations were so pretty and so vivid. The depictions of mental health, particularly depression, were so good and so well written. I loved the pacing and the characters and the plot and the family dynamics and everything about it. I think this book is so good and it's so underrated and it's so important. So anyway, with that said, I rated this book 4 out of 5 stars and I would definitely highly recommend it. The next book on this list is called Loon Ren's Guide to Geozoology. This book is a middle-aged fantasy graphic novel and it follows a young main character whom I believe is supposed to be Asian coded, because I believe that the language that she knows is supposed to be based off of like ancient Chinese or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, she goes on this magical journey to tend to these magical animals, which I think is so interesting and so done. Zoology in a non-magical world is already fascinating to me, so I love learning about magical animals in a fictional place. The world building was so good and so well done. I love the story and the pacing and the friendships and the family dynamics and the characters. Like, this book is fantastic and it was so wholesome and so magical. Like, the illustrations are so well done. I'm not sure if anybody would want this, but I would love to make a video talking about my favorite graphic novels that I've read so far this year. But anyway, this book was so good and I just really enjoyed everything about it. So with that said, I rated this book 4 out of 5 stars and I would definitely highly recommend it. The next book on this list is called The Thrashers. This story is a YA thriller and it follows a young main character who's part of an elite friend group, but she wasn't one of the original friends in the group, if that makes any sense. Like, she was childhood best friends with one of the members, so she has an automatic in, but she's not really wealthy like the rest of them. But anyway, this friend group, including her, starts to become investigated when a girl who desperately wanted to be one of them passes away. I don't know if any of that made any sense, but this book was so good and it was so thrilling and so well done. I love like books that investigate friend groups and friendship group dynamics and each individual like character and how they're all so different, especially when it comes to like a popular friend group, because so often popular people, especially high school students, are like stereotyped as like vapid and like one-dimensional, and to see them like be layered and more complex is just so fascinating to me. I don't know, maybe it's because I think that I would be that person in another timeline. Anyway, this book was so good. I loved the mystery and the pacing and the plot and the characters and literally every single element. This book is excellent and it's totally worth all of its hype and so much more. So with that said, I rated this book 4 out of 5 stars. I would definitely highly recommend it. The next book on this list is called Wishbone. This story is a middle-aged horror contemporary that follows a young transgender main character who adopts this magical cat and starts like venting to the cat basically, but then as he starts to make wishes, he starts to realize that A, the wishes start to come true, but also, second of all, magic comes at a price. Does that make any sense? I thought this book was so good and so fantastic. First of all, I've read so many books previously by this author, and I love how casual their queer representation is. Like, the main character, I believe, is a demi-boy, and I love that representation. Like, his sister is bisexual. Like, this book was so fantastic. I love his friendship so much. I love his relationship with his sister and his parents and the cat. Like, everything was so good, and I love the pacing and the supernatural, like, fantastical elements. This book is so fantastic, and it's so underrated, and I truly loved it so much. So anyway, with that said, I rated this book 4 out of 5 stars, and I would definitely highly, highly recommend it. The next book on this list is called Octopus Moon. This story is a middle-grade contemporary following a young main character as she is struggling with depression as she is starting 5th grade. This story is absolutely so fantastic, and it's so good. First of all, the depiction of depression was so well done, and this is the type of story that I wish I had when I was younger, because when I was younger, I was struggling with so many things that I didn't quite know how to comprehend or label. So I wish that this story had existed when I was younger. Like, this book is so good, and it's so important, and the characters really come to life so well because they feel like real people. I loved her relationship with, like, her sister and her grandparents and her parents and her friends and everyone. Like, this book is so good. I love the plot and the pacing and everything about it. This book is so underrated, and it's so important, and it's so timely, and I know that it can speak to so many young people or people of any age as it did to me with depression. Like, this book is excellent, and I really, really enjoyed it so much. So anyway, with that said, I rated this book 4 out of 5 stars, and I would definitely highly, highly recommend it. The next book on this list is called A Mastery of Monsters. This story is a YA urban fantasy following a young black main character who is infiltrating a secret society of monsters to find her missing brother. And this book is marketed as, like, Ninth House meets the Legendborn, which I think is absolutely so accurate. And this book was so good. First of all, I loved the magic system. I loved the monsters. I love a secret society. Like, that element was so well done and so good. I love the politics and the magic and everything. Second of all, I love the characters. Like, I love them so much, and I also love how casual, like, the side queer representation was, and the black representation and everything about it. This book is so fantastic, and it's so underrated, and I'm literally so excited for the sequel. Like, what the fuck will happen next? I'm so excited. I love the plot and the pacing and the writing and everything about it. This book is so good. This author is so underrated. Like, this book is excellent and so brilliant and just so awesome. So anyway, with that said, I rated this book 4 out of 5 stars, and I would definitely highly, highly recommend it. The penultimate book on this list is called The Blossoming Summer. This story is a middle-grade historical fiction and follows a young main character at the beginning of World War II who is sent to live with her grandmother, and she also discovers that she's indigenous. I think this book is so cool and so well done. I love it so much. I love the portrayal of indigenous culture, especially in a time period where, in my opinion, indigenous people weren't really talked about anymore. I don't really know. I personally need to read more books with indigenous representation, because when I was younger, the only stories that I read about indigenous people were always set during the same time period, like during the 1800s, during the Trail of Tears, etc. Like, nobody really talked about how obviously they still existed after that. So having a story depicting an indigenous family during the beginning of World War II was literally so refreshing and so well done. And also, from a writing perspective, they felt like real people. I loved her family dynamics. I loved the plot and the setting and everything about it. It was so good and so wholesome. I love a solid character-driven coming-of-age historical fiction story. So anyway, with that said, I rated this book 4 out of 5 stars, and I would definitely highly, highly recommend it. The last book on this list, and certainly not the least, is called The Great Misfortune of Stella Sedgwick. This story is a YA historical fiction that follows a young black main character in 1860s England who yearns for a writing career and independence rather than love and marriage like her peers. This book was so good. I think I mentioned at the beginning of the year that I want to read more historical fiction this year, and this book was so good and so fantastic. I loved the characters so much because they really feel like real people, and I just felt like the author did such a great job humanizing everybody. Like, this book was so fantastic, and I loved everything about it. I loved the setting and the plot and the romance and the writing and the pacing and the friendships and everything about it. It was so well done and absolutely so fantastic. Again, this book is so underrated and it's so excellent and it's just so good. And I loved every single second of it from the beginning to the end. I was hooked. I was locked in. This book is excellent and so brilliant and so fantastic. So anyway, with that said, I rated this book 4 to 5 stars and I would definitely highly recommend it. So in conclusion, in July, I read 40 books, which I think is the most amount of books that I've read in 1 month so far this year. Although in general, in 2025, I've read less books this year so far than in 2024. But a factor in that is that I've been working more hours this year than I did last year. So naturally, I have less free time. But anyway, in conclusion, it's been a fruitful and satisfying reading month last month, and I hope that August continues to be. But anyway, in conclusion, if you enjoyed this video, please don't hesitate to give it a big thumbs up. Comment down below in the spoon emoji if you made it all the way to the end of the video. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel if you're new, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!